All right, welcome to my garden. I usually say this is going to be a quick one, but this time it's not. One of the farming or gardening channels that I follow, they made a post or a tweet and it said what are some YouTube channels that you follow or inspirations for gardening or something like that. And I mentioned what I say, Masanobu Fukuoka and Akima Onyam Tewa. So I told them, hey, I'm gonna make my garden, because I could direct them to Akima Onyam Tewa, I could direct them to Masanobu Fukuoka, but I want to show them based on what I've read. I've read One Straw Revolution by Masanobu and Sowing Seeds in the Desert by Masanobu, and I've looked into Akima's methods. I've watched all his videos on YouTube, and I looked into the way the Hopi do dry farming at above 8,000 in the high desert of Arizona, in Four Corners area, above higher than 8,000 feet sea level. And the way they grow is unique to their culture. So over here in Connecticut, on the East Coast, we have Three Sisters gardening, and on the West Coast they did the high farm. They do dry farming. It's similar but different, and I kind of blended the methods, and I added the Masanobu Fukuoka method. So this lake right here is a man-made lake. It used to be just a stream, a river maybe 10 feet wide, 1 foot deep, and I don't know if it was a developer or the town came through and they dredged it all out. But all this land around me is just all hard packed. And I can show you, for example, I've been gardening for about 6 or 7 years, and I'm just now getting weeds to grow in my garden. Weeds. This, he doesn't do anything to it. He doesn't spray. He doesn't weed whack that at all. And that is the most that grows. And this is Connecticut, mind you, where here in Connecticut, it's a subtropical rainforest. That's how much water we get. And nothing grows here. And that's because it's just hard sand and rock. And it's almost as if I'm located in the transitional phase into a desert. Has anybody ever been to like Arizona? Not true desert, but that transitional area. You wouldn't think that it rains for 2 days straight here, just looking. And that's what I'm dealing with because of the hard packed soil. But look. Now if you look right here, this stuff, there's not much life in this soil. I could water this every day and it will still end up dry and sandy. Corn burns, but I'm making progress. I spent 3 years tilling this up every year, and one rainfall comes through, one night of the sprinkler being on, and the ground turns to cement. Let me show you what I mean, or I'll do my best to show what I mean. Okay, so well, you know, I'm a landscaper, so I know how to use a shovel. I've used the shovel once or twice in my life. Also, I'm about 250 pounds. So I'm gonna put my full weight on this, and I'm gonna show you what this ground is like. This is what I'm working with. I mean, that's 4 inches is all I'm able to get with max effort in the ground. It's less than ideal. It's almost like putting topsoil. It's almost like putting topsoil on a parking lot. And I wasn't about to spend money to bring in manure or soil, so I did the Masanobu Fukuoka method. But going back here, as you can see, I let these weeds get out of control. Whatever these are with the spines on them, I let them get out of control. There's ragweed, there's mugwort, and there's a lot of grass. I've just been cutting this stuff up. And as you can see, I'm finally getting it to do what I want it to do. I showed you the grass down there. Now, partially because this tree right here is providing shade, but all these weeds are keeping the soil from drying out and turning to sand. This keeps the soil alive. And every year this system gets better. But I've been seeing these flowers popping up and I couldn't figure out what they are. I hope they go to seed. And then, see, this is the beauty of this system. A lot of the annuals that are planted, instead of having to plant them every year, I rely on nature to reseed the same area. That's the plan. And if you're a farmer and you have to put money in the bank and food on the table, I wouldn't devote your entire system to this, but I would reserve a small amount of space to experiment with this and see the not organic, not natural, but the regenerative agriculture, the one straw revolution. Yeah, I think these have to be calendula because they're all in the lines where I planted them. So the system that I have, and that's why it's the mess. But I want to show how ecstatic I am to have weeds growing in my garden, because before that was difficult. And the sun might not be the best for recording right now, but seeing those weeds, that's pretty much the goal of One Straw Revolution. But I can name all the plants in this garden. Anything with ground cover is good. The idea is this: every single photon from the sun has to be absorbed by something green. It doesn't matter the color, it just has to be absorbed. It can't touch the soil. For every photon that touches the soil loses some water. Not only that, but these plants are very multifaceted. They don't just grow green. For example, the oxalis, it fixates phosphorus. The dandelion fixates calcium. The clover fixates nitrogen. This creeping Charlie, edible, medicinal. Oxalis, edible, medicinal. I've got multiple kinds of clover. This is the purple or pink clover. This one's growing out here. This is called buckthorn plantain, edible, medicinal. There was crimson clover, but that one was earlier. What else do I have in here? Dandelion. The purple nettles, the purple dead nettles, those came and went. As you see, I've got ragweed in here. I've got grass that I have to get rid of before it goes to seed. I've got quickweed, Pennsylvania smartweed. Where's that? This is the Pennsylvania smartweed. I've got quickweed. I've been getting rid of the quickweed because here's the quickweed. This is edible. It's, what's it called? Galinium. I forget its Latin name. But the whole idea is to have ground cover that's edible and useful, rejuvenates the plants. So I'm still working on the system. I don't know if squash has a place in this garden. I haven't figured it out. I would like to include squash and pumpkins. I actually tried to plant them. But look at this soil. This is supposed to be soil. It's sand. This is what I got. It's what I'm working with. Take a look at this, right? This is my strawberry field. I'm using strawberries as ground cover. I have not weeded. This is the best that these sunflowers will grow, up to my knees. These beans barely growing at all. This is the condition that my soil is. This is the, just the bad condition. I haven't weeded here this year. That's the most that things will grow. And it's not because I'm under a cedar. That's part of it, but look at the other side of the fence. They don't spray, they don't weed whack, it's just hard pack. But Masanobu Fukuoka, one straw revolution, I'm able to regenerate everything over time. And you can see the strawberries taking over. I think by next year this entire area will be covered in strawberries completely. And then I don't have to worry about the soil drying out. Take a look. Here the soil is bone dry. I can feel with my feet, okay, because I'm walking barefoot. As soon as I cross over to this section, it's like 10-15 degrees cooler. And the soil is nice, protected from the sun. And that's the goal. Protect the soil from the sun with plants, and let the plants do, because there's a whole bunch of stuff going on underneath the soil. Interaction between mycorrhiza, roots, exudates. There's more that goes on below the soil than above the soil. Every once in a while I step on a rock. So when I first started gardening, this whole area was just one slope, and water, like I said, it would turn this ground into concrete and water would just run off of it. So up here in Connecticut, there's two things you can't walk 100 yards without tripping over. That's a stream or a farmer's wall. And so I would just drive and look for streams and farmer's wall and collect stone. And I build these. Build these walls, level it out, and just let everything grow. This is nothing but strawberry as a cover. Look at that wall that I built. Sometimes I just use wooden planks to cover everything. But this terraforming, I'm a big fan of it. I love it. But using the strawberries as a cover, look at the ground, and it's soft. And I've got trees all around me, and that's my compost. So I don't compost. I don't have anything against compost. I do have something against using animal feces as fertilizer. It's just dirty. It has parasites, diseases. It's gross, right? And so I'll have two videos in the link: DIY biochar and DIY plant fertilizer that I used stinging nettle. And I've been eating all my tomatoes. This plant's doing really well. Again, remember what I said with the biochar. I put a whole bucket of biochar right here, and this plant happens to be doing the best. I don't know if it's circumstantial or what. And I don't know if you can see these are the shortest, these are medium, and this side is the tallest. I put biochar on all of this row on the left. I put a little bit of biochar here, and I put no biochar here. I don't know if the results are conclusive. It honestly could just be that my dogs walk along the fence line and they urinate. That could be the only reason that these are growing. I still stick by biochar. The Three Sisters. Corn, squash, beans. And then they plant in a mound or a circle. So in the center would be corn. Say like 5 corn in the center. And then wider would be beans. And then dotted around it would be squash. And I just thought that it wasn't really, I'm trying to be as efficient as possible. The indigenous people to America, they had the whole country. Here, half an acre, that's the best you can do. More than that is gonna cost millions of dollars. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that's not really realistic for me right now. So I wanted to maximize every single square inch of my garden that I could. So I took the Three Sisters method, and originally I planted in rows. Boom. Like every foot, every 8 inches I'd put a corn, and in between I'd put a bean. I didn't really like the rows. It was difficult to maintain. But the rows are good for organization and walking down. So I didn't want to deviate from the rows. So the method that I employed, see, this is where I grow corn. Well, don't laugh, right? Don't laugh, but this is where I grow corn. I've never gotten corn to grow taller than 4 feet here. And this corn, it's short, but it's only supposed to get 3 to 4 feet tall anyways. So if this is about 2.5 to 3 feet tall, for my soil, that's, like I said, I've never gotten corn to grow any much taller than this. That's about 4 feet there. And I got this random idea. I forget, it was last year I was growing sunflowers and trying to make a trellis with the sunflowers like this. I was trying to make a trellis with the sunflowers and have the tomatoes grow in the middle so that the tomatoes could grow instead of having to use those everywhere. And I just got the idea that I could incorporate it into this system, because the beans, they grow faster than the corn does. But the sunflowers are almost 7 feet tall. Okay, so my adaptation of the Three Sisters method is, instead of having the beans climb around the corn, which I felt choked out the corn, I decided to adapt the Hopi dry farming method of corn with the sunflowers. And the beans will climb around the sunflowers. What I decided to do this year was the painstaking process of germinating each individual sunflower and transplanting it. And that works if I'm going to be putting, I let these containers dry out too much, as you can see, but that works if you're putting tomato in the middle and trying to use this as a trellis. So that's one of my systems. Make a box with the sunflowers, put beans on the outside, wrap the beans around so that the tomato can trellis around the sunflowers, can trellis the sunflowers as support, the beans going around as the lateral or horizontal supports, and then the tomato in the middle, keeping it from falling over. Tomato or tomatillos, I grow both. Look at this. I wove that together just now. Now watch what happens when the wind blows. They all move together. Because sunflowers break over notoriously. But these sunflower roots are going to go in and break it up. And my rotation, my crop rotation, I don't do crop rotation. My rotation is the sunflowers are here. The corn was here, it got choked out. The sunflowers are here. Next year, It's going to be corn here, sunflowers here, corn here, sunflowers there, corn there, and then rotate the root locations. Look at these sunflowers. And the sunflowers are doing very well this year, and I'm glad because the sunflowers are going to go in and break up the dirt. Look at this thing. One of these is supposed to be the Hopi purple flower, but I don't know. I don't think that's it. The colors, just beautiful. Sunflowers are one of my favorites. So this is what I wanted to do. Beans in the middle, some type of herb on the outside. That's basil. I overcomplicated the process. But I realized, I mean, look at these. These are nice. I planted random ones, like an assortment, 10 different varieties of sunflowers. Sunflowers are one of my favorites. I don't know about you. They're just... Then I planted them all in one central location, and I plan to have the beans growing in a circle around it and winding up around it, keeping them together. And that's going to be my system that I will apply here. But if I'm doing it as I did back here, I can just do this system where I plant all my sunflowers in the same section, put the beans on the outside to have the beans wrap upwards. Well, like I said, I overcomplicated it. The method for planting the corn is by taking a handful of seed. If you want 10, plant 20 or 15. I don't know the exact mathematics behind it. And thin out what you don't want. Well, I adapted that principle to the sunflower instead of germinating and transplanting each individual one. So this grouping of sunflower is approximately 10 days old, I want to say. 10 days to 2 weeks. And I soaked these in water overnight, maybe 2 nights, I forget. And you can see they're already popping. So they're ready to go. Now the next method would be to understand that this is going to go in a row. So I will plant very simply 1, 2, 3, 4, just like that. And I'll be sure to water these tonight. So I have 50 seeds, and I'll plant 4 seeds around each because I have 11 nodes. And the parts that I'm still working out is not just the ground cover, but the stuff that I have in between. Or had in between, because I see one of them, the lupines are drying up. Anyways, I've got these lupine here. This lupine. I've got buckwheat in between. I had radishes, but they got choked out by the weeds. It was experimental. I don't know. I'm still, figuring out the exactitudes of all this. I have borage, but some of them got choked out. That's my system. As you can see, I'm growing a ton of beans this year. So the difference in soils, you see how these beans are just now growing? This is the bad soil. This I've been adding to and constantly amending this soil on this level. And look at these beans. This is the Masanobu Fukuoka system and the indigenous Three Sisters system of the eastern indigenous populations of the United States, and then the western dry Hopi farming. It's a combination of all 3 systems. And my idea was, if I was to acquire, say, 10 acres of desert sand, this is how I would do it. Literally Masanobu Fukuoka's planting seeds in the desert. And that is how my Three Sisters method has been adapted to Hopi dry farming and permaculture. Masanobu Fukuoka, One Straw Revolution, Do Nothing Gardening.